Welcome to the new YouTube channel. If you haven't already done it, hit the subscribe button to follow us all season long for updates and content. So happy that you're here. It's going to be a great year. Welcome back to another exciting week of the Richard Sherman podcast, week 1 of the National Football League. It's been chaos, Mitchell.
It always is, Rich. I could not be more excited, man. You flip on the TV this morning. Football is back, my friend. It is back. And we were blessed, I said all day, by some good games. I think some surprises, but some good games. Rich.
And my Super Bowl prediction is still looking good. Although the Kansas City Chiefs lost, I expect them to look good in December and January when it matters. Travis Kelce will be there. Chris Jones will be there. But you know who looked great? Who usually don't look great on the opening week? Kyle Shanahan's teams usually look a little rocky, to start the season, and then they come on late, get sharp, but they looked sharp, Mitchell. Everybody had question marks with DeMeco Ryan leaving after Robert Saleh left. They're like, how is this defense going to be? That's like asking Mitchell, is a Ferrari still going to be fast if somebody else is driving it? Mitchell, I can drive, you can drive, my daughter Avery can drive it. It's still going to be a Ferrari, baby. And that defense is a Ferrari, and they got Javon Hargrave, who had him a sack today. But let's talk about the all-pros, Mitchell, the all-pros on each level. We'll start with Nicholas John Bosa. Came off the streets pretty much. 2 days of practice and had a pretty good impact. Got doubled, didn't get any sacks, but he allowed for Drake Jackson in his second year to have a coming-out party, 3 sacks. Javon Hargrave got a sack. Then you had Fred Warner, who was all over the field, all over the place like Project Roaches. Mitchell, him and Drake Greenlaw are by far the best linebacker tandem in the National Football League. And Drake Greenlaw could have got player of the game. He was everywhere. But Fred Warner, tipping passes, dropping interception. Oh, I know he wanted that one back, Mitchell. He had his hands on the interception, a little bit behind him, covered it so well, dropped it. And they tried to fit it in. Kenny Pickett. Yes, he can. Can he get picked? Yes, he can. Mitchell, he can. He did. Talanoa Hufanga. Charvarius Ward, they both got him. Mooney Ward got him on a clean one, smooth. Talanoa got him on a tip because he decided to try all-pro Fred, which is unacceptable. Yes, you're going to get punished. And then he got sexy with it, Mitchell. He got a little pitch. And the refs got to let that go sometimes. Like, he wasn't pitching it forward. They know what he was trying to do. Like, you're running full speed. It's hard to pitch it behind you. But, man, that was fun to watch. It was fun to watch that D-line. It was fun to watch the linebackers fly around. Then you get to the offense, and everybody got questions about Brock Purdy. Mitchell, how did he look to you?
He looked good, Rich. He looked very, very good. That's the thing with this team. I mean, we were texting all the way through the game. They looked like they were in mid-season form right out the gates. And to your point, they got that ace of spades always in their back pocket. Doesn't matter what that offense is doing. They got all pros at every depth of that defense. But when Brock Purdy plays like this, Rich, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Super Bowl looks very, 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 very achievable, even with Brock Purdy at the helm.
And it's even with, Mitchell. Even with, like, he's playing good football. If he was a top 5 pick, Mitchell, playing like he is right now, people would be talking about he's on his way to being one of the all-time, one of the elites in the football league. But since he's a 7th rounder who doesn't look the part, whose arm isn't as lively as everybody else's, he's a system quarterback. People are not going to give him credit because he has Christian McCaffrey in the backfield who could break for a 65-yard run. The receivers down the field blocking Brandon Ayuk, Ray McDonald out there. Ray McLeod, my bad. Said it wrong. Ray McLeod out there. That's how much they care. And then you got Brandon Ayuk by himself. Patrick Peterson said before the game, he expected to get his hands on a football, and he's a veteran. One of my good friends, been playing for a long time, got a lot of them books, and he expected to get one this game. And they gave him a really simple pattern, but they condensed it. They made it look a little different. That's what Kyle does a great job of. Window dressing, make similar things look different. Move a guy here, move a guy here, and then have them run out and expand instead of just standing out there and running the route. So they ran basically double post. And the over route by Deebo Samuel, for some reason, the safety got pulled out of there. He's a middle field safety. You should let that pass to the other corner, and it's fine, and then fall back, and you might have an interception. But instead, He didn't. Ayuk froze Pat P a little bit, turned around, and he was sitting there all day ready to catch that one. Nobody even touched him when he landed. Then he had the fade ball, Mitchell, into tight coverage. Easy one. And those are the footballs. Those are the reasons why Kyle Shanahan really likes Brock Purdy, because he's giving his receivers a chance, even though, and sometimes in those situations, it doesn't look like it's a good throw. It's a good decision. You're like, that's a jump ball 50-50. He's saying, hey, this BA, my guy's better than yours. I'm going to give you a chance. And that's what's going to win him over his guys. But, man, that was a good performance all the way around.
Going into this game, the Vegas line, it was hovering around 3 points. There was a lot of action on Pittsburgh. To me, I'm like, you sure about that? This is the same team, San Francisco. This is now 11 straight regular season wins. This team's not backing down anytime soon, Rich. Again, they look like they are in mid-season form. Purdy shut up some haters today. There's no doubt.
He definitely did. And then you heard all the hype around Kenny Pickett from the preseason. And you're like, Kenny Pickett had an outstanding preseason, almost perfect. And then he got against the number one defense in the land. Prove yourself against them boys. And it's very difficult to do. Even when TJ Watt is having a freaking amazing day. TJ Watt had a great day, 3 sacks. He's going to be the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year because Bosa didn't start off with no sacks. So he's going to have a good shot at it. But Deontay Johnson only had 3 catches for 48 yards. George Pickens was non-existent after everything you've heard, all the positive things we've heard about him coming out of training camp. He was a go-to guy. He's going to be one of the best in the league. And it's just crazy, Mitchell. It's just crazy. But you know what's even crazier, Mitchell?
I already know where you're going with this, Rich. Let's go to your own backyard, man.
I don't want to go back.
Seattle. They're welcoming the Rams for opening day. You already know the 12s are fired up. They're expecting a big win. There's a lot of hype. Heck, we gave them a lot of hype. The Rams are supposed to be this new era. I'm sorry, the Seattle Seahawks are supposed to be this new era. Not the Rams. The Rams are the dumpster fire of the NFC West. Not today, my friend. Not today. What the heck happened, Rich?
Mitchell, I don't know. That's the hardest part. I could not put a finger on it. The formula is there. All the ingredients are there to make a beautiful meal, Mitchell, a beautiful entree, hot steak dinner with all the fixings, Mitchell. You got sugar and spice and everything nice. And it was a disaster, Mitchell. The Rams didn't go in there expecting to play as well as they did. They didn't expect to put up 30 points. Sean McVay can lie and say he did. But if we went in there, even based off of Stafford's comments in training camp, you can't connect with the young guys and trying to find a way to get connected. And we're just so young and we don't know what we're going to do. And they were missing their best receiver, Cooper Kupp. Mitchell, they were missing him. They were missing Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp was not playing, Mitchell. And so you used Tutu Atwell, who had 6 receptions for 119, a great game. Puka Nacua from BYU, 10 catches for 119. Mitchell, Seattle was missing a few guys. They were missing their number 5 pick, Devin Witherspoon. They're missing Jamal Adams. But at the end of the day, this Rams team is a bottom 5 roster in the National Football League. It is hard for anybody to debate that or argue it. Outside of Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, I guess Tutu Atwell now, they may have a couple more guys that can play, but they're not expected to win a lot of games. So for them to go into Seattle in week 1 and beat them by 17 points and hold their offense with Geno Smith coming off a Pro Bowl season, all the things they do well, 3 really good receivers. Jackson Smith and Jigba supposed to come in here and make an immediate impact. You still got DK, Tyler Lockett. They start to drop like flies, Mitchell. JSN goes down. Lockett goes out with concussion symptoms. And then it's just DK out there. And they held them, Mitchell. They held them to 12 yards in the second half. Total. 12 yards. Like, with your boy K9 in the backfield and everything. 12 yards. It's hard to explain. It's hard for me to come up with answers for the fans and say, hey, this is what they need to do better. This is what they need to do better. They got to play defense. They made it too easy, but I told you, Matt Stafford, without any expectations, without any burden, without any pressure, is a dangerous player, Mitchell. He's a dangerous player. He does not care. He'll sidearm it. He'll throw it over the top. He'll bomb you. He'll throw it underneath. He does not care. He's a risk taker. He's the epitome of a gunslinger. And that's what they saw. He threw for 334 on 24 for 38 for 334, no touchdowns, but they rushed it well. They ran it well. When they got into the red zone, Seattle gotta look themselves in the mirror and answer some hard questions, because defensively, that's where they gotta be better. Offensively, clearly they gotta be better, and I think they will. But defensively, that was unacceptable.
Oh, well, let's back up a day. Pretend today's Saturday, Rich. I tell you, hey, the Rams are going to beat Seattle Seahawks 30-13 on the Seattle Seahawks home turf. What would your reaction be to me?
Mitchell, I would call the volume and send somebody to your house to drug test you immediately. Mitchell, I need to know what you're on, because I don't need any of it, because that is ridiculous. That's what I would have said, Mitchell. And what happened was what happened. You know, DK Metcalf was having a really good game in the first half. He looked smooth, had a really cool touchdown. It looked like Seattle was just, hey, they're warming up, they're coming into their own, and they're going to get going. And the wheels just fell off the bus. I mean, the bus just fell off the bus. I mean, the wheels, the axles, I mean, the chassis. Good night.
Well, Richard, I hate to say this, and Seattle Seahawks fans, I'm speaking directly to you right now. I hate to say this to you guys, but it gets no easier. It gets no easier next week. You're coming to me, Rich. You guys are coming to me. You're flying out to Detroit. You're playing in an Eastern time zone. Rich, you know your body clock doesn't adjust in one day. You're coming to Ford Field for the Lions home opener, fresh off a Kansas City Chief away game victory. You know Ford Field is going to be hype, Rich. Is 0-2 in the future for this Seattle Seahawks team right now?
I can't see it, Mitchell. I'm not going to give them that, Mitchell. It's a trap game now, Mitchell. It's a trap game for Detroit. You know, they never thought they'd come into week 2 in the trap game, but I think they'll make up for what they did. You know, they'll correct some things. The offensive line will play better. The defensive line will play better. Secondary has to clean up some things. You know, I'm sure Clint Hurt is going to look at the tape and kind of find what didn't work, what did work, and clean it up as best they can. But there aren't any easy answers for that. There aren't any easy answers. You're not going to play a worse roster team. You know, Stafford's a good quarterback. So you can say quarterback play can be, you know, you can find worse quarterbacks in the league than Matt Stafford and how he played. But Jared Goff isn't one of them.
Well, before we leave that game, all you fantasy football players out there, I can guarantee Puka Nacua is going to be a hot name on that waiver wire going into Monday and Tuesday. Can you believe we've had 7 months without an NFL game? Crazy, right? Well, good thing that's over. NFL is here, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is giving you a can't-miss offer for Week 1. This week, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet $5 on any NFL game. DraftKings is hooking everyone up with game day greatness. All customers can take advantage of 2 great offers every game day this September. Check the app to see what you can get. Download now and use code Sherman to sign up. New customers can take home $200 in bonus bets instantly just for betting $5. That's code Sherman, only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See dkng.co/football for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply.
Football is back. No more preseason games. The regular season is here. While we all love watching our favorite teams on television, there is nothing better than being at a game live and in person. And the best way to get tickets to any of these games is on Game Time, the fastest growing ticket app in the U.S. For last-minute amazing deals on tickets to see your favorite football team this September, download Game Time. And it's not just football. Game Time has tickets to baseball games, concerts, and even comedy shows all over the U.S. Download the Game Time app and redeem code SHERMAN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the Game Time app and use the redeem code SHERMAN. That's SHERMAN for $20 off. No matter where you live, get out and have some fun this week. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Let's move on to Denver. We talked about him a lot last year. Obviously a new situation. Sean Payton takes over there. They come out of the gates right away, onside kick. All is looking good with the Denver Broncos to a degree midway through that game. And they lose. We talked about it off air. What are your expectations, Rich, about this new marriage between Russell Wilson and Sean Payton going 0-1 in week 1?
Soon as it happened, Mitchell, as soon as that onside kick happened and they had success and then the penalty negated it, I text Ryan Fitzpatrick and Andrew Whitworth and I said, that's going to be symbolic of this game because it looked like it was going to work, Mitchell, and then it didn't. It looked like it happened, and then it didn't. And not that Russell played bad. Russell didn't play bad at all. They ran the ball well. Javonte Williams looked really good. You can't argue that. Samaje Perine looked like, they looked like a great 1-2 punch. They were, I think Samaje Perine averaged 5 yards a carry. Javonte Williams averaged 4.1. And Russ was really efficient. He was 27 for 34, but for only 177 yards. That's when it starts to get concerning, Mitchell. It's like, all right, 27 for 34, you're expecting at least 200 yards. At least 200 yards. You got to give me 200 yards. But when you're only averaging 4.6 yards per pass, per completion, Mitchell, you're not going to win a lot of ball games like that. That's what the game of the game, and that's Russell Wilson's game, and that's been his game. So that's where you say, hey, you can see Sean Payton working on Russ, and Russ kind of, the marriage. You can see where it's coming together really well. There were some passes in there where you're like, man, Russ hit his back foot, got the ball out, hit his back foot, making really fast decisions, being really efficient with the football. But then you say, well, what makes Russ special? You're like, the uncharacteristic off-schedule plays, the bombs. Russell Wilson is good for at least one bomb a game, one 50-yarder, 45-yard bomb, whether it's a post, a go route, something, or a deep over, heading to the other side of the field. And you just didn't see those. And you're like, was it the offensive line that was holding it back? Or was it the fear of, because Las Vegas, they have Max Crosby, and he's a really good pass rusher, but they don't have a ton of pass rush, so you're not thinking he's getting pressured. Then you're like, hey, maybe it's the receivers, but he was making it work with the receivers he had. And then Jimmy G, Mitchell. Jimmy G and Josh McDaniels are a match made for each other. They did well in New England when Jimmy G had to play, when Tom got hurt. And Jimmy G played really well, and he's still playing really well within this scheme. And this time he has Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers, and they both played really well. He was connecting with Jacoby Myers for 2 touchdowns, all the crucial third down. You got to give all the credit in the world to the guy on the other side. Patrick Surtain was strapping. He was strapping. And I'm sure Devontae would say the same. It was no luck. It was no, hey, well, he's holding. He was doing this. He was playing off. Footwork was great. He was following left, right. There were times they were running zone and Devontae would go inside and you can't just make up your own coverage, Patrick Surtain, and you can't just go in there when it's zone coverage and you don't have to. That's not your assignment. But anytime he could line up across from him, he did, and he played really well. But still, Devontae had 6 catches for 66 yards. Devontae Adams is going to continue to be Devontae Adams, obviously, but with Jimmy G and his efficiency, Jimmy G is an efficient quarterback, and I know he threw the interception in the red zone. He was trying to give his team a chance. It was doing too much. Kareem Jackson made an amazing play. Ball got tipped in the air. Without that, it would have been a great game for Jimmy G. Max Crosby doing what he does, got a sack. But my concern is that last year, one thing that Denver could hang their hats on was their defense. They could hang their hats on it, Mitchell. They won a 10-11 ball game against the San Francisco 49ers early in the season, Mitchell. They had a couple 10-9 ball games and things like that where they held the team to under 10 points and under 15 points and things like that. And right now, the Raiders weren't expected to do a ton. The Raiders aren't the Chargers in their offense. Justin Herbert, we just watched what they did with Justin Herbert and Mike Williams and Austin Eckler. And, they're going to give them problems. And then you saw the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to have Travis Kelce for that game. And so that's where you're concerned, is that defense that they've been able to rely on so heavily in the past isn't showing up in the way that they're used to. And I don't know what the problem is right there. They did a great job stopping the run, but there were some big plays to be had out there, and Jimmy G had them. And the next week, the Broncos play the Commanders, who were coming off a win, and they looked sloppy in that game, so they could potentially get a win there. But the Raiders are playing the Bills, and that's going to be a wake-up call.
Well, that's the thing too, Rich. I mean, the Broncos coming into the season, it's new season. Let's put last season behind us, right? I mean, there's more hope in Denver this year. New coaching staff. Hoping that they can figure out this whole Russell Wilson situation. And then you start this game out. The Raiders were regarded as, I don't want to put them bottom of the barrel of the league, but certainly lower tiered than most. I mean, below average team in the NFL. They come out, they beat you on your home turf. If they go out and lose to the Washington Commanders next week, I mean, Richard, this could be last year all over again. And I don't want to pile on to Russ by any means. Like you said, he had an efficient game to a degree. He didn't take many shots downfield. But, like, at what point does the Denver fan base just give up on the guy? Like, it could get ugly quick, Rich, if they don't get to winning. And that's the big thing. Winning cures all. They got to get to winning quick.
They have to. And the thing that makes this sting a little bit more is it's a division game that you lost at home to what most people would consider the worst team in your division. And so if you lose your first game to what people think is the worst team in your division, clearly they're not. They won this game. And they look a lot better than they did last year. Josh Jacobs is back, but he'll have to get more touches and get more in sync. But it's a lot of concern. They have to go into to that Washington game very focused because it could get real bad. It could get, Sean Payton is going to have to answer some uncomfortable questions if they don't find a way to win that game in Washington. But there's still hope right now. There's still hope. I mean, the offense looked really good at times. They moved the ball really efficiently. They got away with some things. And, some of the plays got negated. There was a long pass interference on a long ball to Sutton. That could have been a big play, but it looked a little overthrown. But it was a pass interference, and those don't count against the receiving yards. So for all intents and purposes, it was a solid game for Russell, and hopefully he can build on that. But it's just uncharacteristic not to see him take shots down the field and at least have one or two of those big plays. But Mitchell, there was a shootout in L.A.
Was there ever, Rich? And we got something fun this week for you guys. We got a brand new segment to introduce, brought to you by our friends at Morgan & Morgan. It's the Making It Look Easy segment this week, Rich. Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. This week, Richard, Tua made it look real easy out there, going 28 for 45, throwing for 466 and 3 tutties. I did not stutter, Rich. That was not 2 games. That was one singular game. 466 yards and 3 touchdowns for the Dolphins. Your thoughts on Tua's performance today?
Mitchell, there was something said because they asked Tua, and these kids try their best not to make it personal and not to get into like the nuances of these rivalries and personal player against player stuff. So Tua tried to stay away from the Tua Herbert comparisons. There was so much whispering and yelling sometimes about how the Miami Dolphins should have picked Justin Herbert and how they regret not picking Justin Herbert, how Tua wasn't the guy. And you know what Tua did, Mitchell? He got on the field with him and he doubled him up, Mitchell. And what do I mean by double him up? He doubled up his stats, Mitchell. Justin Herbert played a pretty good game, 23 for 33, for 228 and a touchdown. But that's not 466, Mitchell. That is not 466. That is not 3 touchdowns, Mitchell. And Tua and Tyreek were out there playing backyard. Tyreek went for 215. 215 yards. Brandon Staley is supposed to be a defensive mastermind. He's not one of these offensive coaches where you're like, hey, they're going to score a lot of points. That's why they hired Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore did a great job. They scored 34 points. They moved the ball. Eckler played well. Joshua Kelly played well. But you looked up and you're like, wait, they have all this talent on the Chargers defense. You talk about Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack. You talk about J.C. Jackson. There is so much talent. Asante Samuel Jr., Derwin James, the All-Pro, one of the best safeties in the National Football League. All this talent, and you just can't seem to stop people. 466 yards, and that is just passing the football, Mitchell. Over 500 yards of offense against a really talented defense. So then you start to question, is it the scheme? Like, what are they doing with this talent? Why can't they put these guys in position to be successful year after year? Every year you hear about how great this defense should be on paper. And they should be because there's so much talent. J.C. Jackson. And then you think, in this game in particular, J.C. Jackson had a costly mistake right before the half, just a blunder where he pushes the receiver on a play, gets a PI, and they get a lucky 3 points right before the half, and they lose by 2. So I know in the film room they're going to be talking about that. And J.C. Jackson gets an interception in the game, had some really good plays, but that's a play you can't have. And I'm just baffled right now by this Chargers defense. I don't know why. I don't know why they're giving up so many points. Tua's a really great player. Tyreek's a great player, but you can double people, Mitchell. It's the National Football League. You find a way to get people stopped. At least one guy. If it's just one guy killing you, Mitchell, you can find the answers for him. You double him, you bracket him. Shoot, with your boy Calvin, they used to put vice on him, like punt return vice, whatever it takes to get the guy stopped. But you don't let a guy go for 215.
They got weapons out there in Miami, Rich. They got a lot of them. And shout out to Tua, recipient of our Making It Look Easy nominee, I guess, of the week, brought to you by Morgan & Morgan.
If you're ever injured, go to forthepeople.com/Sherman or dial pound. That's 529 on your cell phone to check out America's largest injury law firm. Winning in the NFL is hard, but hiring Morgan & Morgan is easy. But Mitchell, he was making it look too easy, and nobody else had more than 4 catches, so they got to figure that out.
They do. Rich, I have to say this. I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead in the podcast, but I got a good feeling the Miami Dolphins are going to squeeze their way into the top 5 of your power ranks because, by God, you go on the road week 1. The LA Chargers are a good team, Rich. Let's not just dismiss them because this LA Charger team, for one time in the last year plus, is fully healthy. I mean, I know Mike Williams got hit pretty hard over the middle there, but they are fully healthy, and they played a pretty darn good game. Miami Dolphins go on the road week 1. Huge performance out of Tua. Huge performance out of Tyreek. They got weapons all over the field. Once they get the running back core healthy, I'm speaking from Mitch Eisenstein personally. The Dolphins, you might have picked the wrong team in the AFC East, Rich. I got a sneaky suspicion this Dolphin team is going to be messing around for a while.
They'll be messing around, Mitchell, but the Jets have a defense that can play, Mitchell. They have people that actually stop people. We could talk about the 2 games that Tyreek played against Sauce Gardner, Sauce and Reed. You know what I mean? We don't want to talk about them having a lead versus Sauce and Reed. We don't want to talk about what they can achieve when they play Sauce and Reed, but whatever, Mitchell. I'm not going to go there. We could talk about the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. Jordan Love, Mitchell, I did not have a lot of faith in Jordan Love. And I'm still on the fence. He played a great game, though. Got to give him all the credit in the world. 15 for 27, 245, 3 touchdowns, 123.2 passer rating. That's a fantastic game for anybody. And Aaron Jones continuing to do what he's always done, 9 rushes for 41 yards, a TD, 2 receptions, 88 yards in a TD. But he got a little banged up at the end, so that's concerning. Their defense played really, really well, was very disruptive. Devontae Wyatt, a sack and a half. Quay Walker, who they picked up with a pick 6. And then it's just got to be concerning for the Bears. That offensive line looked porous at times. I mean, there was pressure all over the place in Justin Fields' face. He was 24 for 37, but 216 yards. He had a touchdown, but he threw an interception. He ran the ball for 59 yards on 9 carries, but he lost a crucial fumble. I just don't know what to make of them, but the Packers got more time to develop. They're playing the Falcons this week, who are coming off a huge win. Bijan Robinson looks like the real deal. But that should be another good test for them. The Bears are at the Bucs, and the Bucs, Mitchell, the Bucs, boy.
Richard, before you leave this game, I live in NFC North country over here.
Mm-hmm.
It's well chronicled. We've had to endure, as a Detroit Lion fan, we've had to endure Brett Favre. We've had to endure the immediate turnover into Aaron Rodgers. And now we're all happy over here because we don't have to deal with either of those two. But now there's Jordan Love. And I got friends texting me, Packers fans texting me, hey, we got another one.
Mitchell.
I will say this, and I mean, Jordan Love. Good game today, solid and 15 completions. Whoop-de-doo, Reality is, it's the perfect week 1 opponent for him. Let's not forget, last year, the Chicago Bears finished the NFL with the worst record in the league for a reason. They were the worst team in the league. And there was a lot of hype around them going into the season, a potential worst to first candidate. Well, I got news for you, my friends down in Chicagoland. You're going to stay in the worst dweller because this team was fumbling the ball. They did not look explosive plays. I didn't see any of them. I mean, I don't know whether to make more of Jordan Love's performance and the Green Bay Packers performance or more of the Chicago Bears just sheer poor performance. And Richard, I'm kind of in the middle of the two of them right now.
I can't figure it out, and we'll need more time, but you got to give Jordan Love credit for, the opponent. They stepped out there. They were in front of him. He went in there and he shredded them. I mean, 15 passes doesn't seem like a lot, but he threw for 245. We were just talking about Russell Wilson completing 27 passes for only 177 yards and 2 touchdowns. This guy threw for 245 on less completions. So the yards per play, yards per pass are greater, but it's just a lot up in the air. I'm not ready to put them in the power rankings at all. Their defense played really well, so you got to give them all the credit in the world. The Packers scored on their opening drive. They hadn't scored on the opening drive one time the whole season last year. So that's improvement. But we'll see. We'll see how they do going forward. But he looks good. I'm sure Packers fans are feeling very good and optimistic going forward. I think they got another one, but we will see. It is a long season in the National Football League.
Well, we're talking about the NFC North, so let's stay in the NFC North. Minnesota. And we talked about it. Earlier last week. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Everyone's sleeping on them. Rich.
Yeah.
Everyone is sleeping on them. Tom Brady retires. Baker Mayfield comes in. I mean, they got the same players over there, just new quarterback. And sure as heck, Baker Mayfield comes in, gets it done. It wasn't always pretty, but by God, they got the W. Is this more to do with Tampa Bay and their performance, or is it more to do with the reality of what's going on in Minnesota? They let Dalvin Cook go. They let a lot of players on the defensive side of the ball go. What do you make of this loss? Because Minnesota was winning these games every time last year. 1 possession game, 1 loss in 2023 for the Minnesota Vikings. Your thoughts?
Football is one of those games, Mitchell. The ball does not always bounce your way. So what protects you when it doesn't bounce your way is fundamentals, efficiency, being executing. They did not execute down the stretch. And a lot of this blame is going to fall on Kirk Cousins, but I don't think it's deserved. I think Kirk Cousins went 33 for 44 for 344, 2 touchdowns, hit Justin Jefferson on a ton of plays, Jordan Addison on some big plays. He did a great job. Danielle Hunter had a sack, but you're playing against Mike Evans. And Baker Mayfield hasn't had a 6'5" receiver that you just put it in his vicinity and he's going to catch a touchdown. Mike Evans has had 1,000 yards regardless of who's throwing the football. And he's going to have 1,000 yards this year. And I think that Baker was just poised. Todd Bowles has a great scheme, but I could say Kirk dissected that scheme. I don't think the defense for the Minnesota Vikings showed up in a way that they needed them to today. You know, they only gave up 20 points, but that's 20 points. And Justin Jefferson's 25th game with 100+ receiving yards, which is fantastic. But when he has over 150 receiving yards, the team is only 4-5, which is weird. I don't understand that. They're 4-5 when he goes off, which ain't his fault. He keep going off, but they need to figure out what else is going on that they need to get fixed. But it's huge for the Bucs' confidence because just like the Rams and other people not giving them a chance, they're out there playing well. They're executing. Chris Godwin's a really good receiver. Mike Evans is a really good receiver. So Baker Mayfield isn't just out there with janitors and chefs from down the street and bartenders. He's not. He's out there with real quality receivers, and that's what they did. They went out there and executed. We talked about David Canales, their new offensive coordinator who came from Seattle, knows how to get the best out of his quarterback, knows how to do what needs to be done. Just take what the defense gives him. And Baker played a solid game, 21 of 34 for 173 and 2 touchdowns with no interceptions. But it's just a solid game. You're not sitting here. I'm not sitting here, writing home about how Baker Mayfield threw for 173 and 2 touchdowns. And that's similar stats to what Russell Wilson had for Denver, but they didn't get the win. And so the difference maker was the turnover for Kirk Cousins, the interception. And that's it, Mitchell. Antoine Winfield Jr. also had a turnover. They forced two fumbles and got them both. Kirk Cousins' own sack. So that offensive line for the Minnesota Vikings needs to be fixed as well. Antoine Winfield Jr. went to a place where his dad played for a number of years, a place that he was raised in, and had a strip, forced fumble recovery trifecta, Mitchell. It was fun to watch.
Not to mention he's a former Minnesota Golden Gopher as well. So he's got some fans in that stands as well. And might be tough to root against him when he's doing that against your team, but I'm sure they were. Richard, the crazy stat of this game, I guess, overall is Justin Jefferson, another 150-yard plus performance. But they are 4-5 in those games. So, Richard, they need a running game. And without Dalvin Cook, 17 rushes, 41 yards, they're going to have to fix that really, really quick in order to be competitive in this NFC North against my Detroit Lions too. Rich, come on now.
Yep, they better get it fixed fast because Detroit is going to be rolling, Mitchell. Detroit has Seattle, and that game goes Detroit's way, and they're 2-0. They start to get away from them in this division. It starts to get really weird, Mitchell.
Let's look at the surprise of the day, potentially, Rich. Let's go to Cleveland. We haven't talked about a Cleveland. We talked about this briefly before.
We never go to Cleveland, Mitchell.
We never talk about Cleveland, but we're going to talk about them right now because they earned it.
They did earn it.
24-3, Rich. Joe Burrow, highest paid player in NFL history. Looked like he probably should have been the lowest paid player in NFL history today. 14-31 for 82 yards. I know the conditions were suspect out there, but you got a 52.2 passer rating after getting that huge payday. I expect a lot more. How the heck does this happen? 24-3, Rich.
I have no idea, Mitchell. It just looked bad. It was the conditions. It was the offensive line. It was just a terrible game. But you got to remember, Joe Burrow didn't play in a lot of the training camp. He doesn't have the reps. And the quarterback is probably the main position that you have to have the reps. You have to get your footwork. You have to have the pressure in your face and move around and go through your reads, get the speed of the game. And it just looked like the game was moving too fast for him. It was probably the first time in his career where it looked like the game was too fast for Joe Burrow. And he had the career low 82 passing yards, 14-32, 52.2 passer rating, a career low. Only took 2 sacks, but then you got Jamar Chase because he still has these elite receivers, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. And Jamar Chase had 5 catches for 39 yards. I mean, just wasn't a lot of yards to go around. But it's mind-boggling. I had him as an MVP candidate this year. And obviously you're not going to get it done doing that. The conditions were the conditions, but Deshaun Watson still went 16-29 for 154, threw an interception and a TD, but they still found ways to get it done. They couldn't. Joe Mixon was non-existent. So the the Cincinnati Bengals couldn't lean on their run game like the Browns did. The Browns leaned on Nick Chubb, who's been voted the best running back in the National Football League, 18 carries for 106 and a touchdown, 4 receptions. And then Myles Garrett showed up in a big way when they needed him. Big sacks, a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and it just never looked like Cincinnati had a chance. Deshaun Watson ran for a touchdown, but he didn't look like he played particularly well. But it looks like the Browns have the Bengals number. They've beat them 6 of the last 7. Like, there aren't many
That's
teams.
Crazy.
And the Bengals have had really good teams. They've been into the AFC Championship 2 of the last 3 years. So it's not like these teams are just, run-of-the-mill teams. These are really good teams. So I think this is a big confidence booster for the Cleveland Browns. But, I mean, it's a head-scratcher for the Bengals.
It is a head-scratcher. I mean, you touched on Nick Chubb. I mean, I feel like he doesn't get enough love. I mean, there's a guy, like, truthfully, Rich, offensively, he is their guy. But you don't hear his name a whole lot on a national, perspective, but he certainly deserves it. I mean, as you touched on, I know NFL personnel and players and coaches and GMs all voted him the number one best running back in the league. And he certainly deserved it after today's performance. 18 rushes, 106 yards, really set the tone for their team. Richard, they look like they have developed an identity. Defensively, Myles Garrett is a beast. I mean, you want to talk about a defensive player of the year candidate? There's one in Cleveland right there, Myles Garrett. They address a lot of needs in the offseason. This win is a huge shocker to me, and I would assume the NFL landscape. But does it change your perception of the Cleveland Browns going forward the rest of this year? Do you think that they could be a contender in this division and in the AFC?
Well, Jim Schwartz was another addition that they picked up. Somebody I'm sure you're familiar with.
Sure.
Jim Schwartz has this defense playing really well. It doesn't seem like they're running a different scheme than what Joe Woods was running with them last year. It just seems like the players are executing it a lot better. They're in the hooks. They're being where they're supposed to be. The corners are tighter in coverage. They've always had Denzel Ward, who's one of the top paid corners, one of the best corners in the National Football League, but it just seems like they're executing. They're inspired. I don't know if this is just early in the season, but they're playing fast. They're running. They're hitting. It's fun to watch, but it's not fun to watch if you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan because there aren't many answers out there for you.
Well, we're not going to go too far from Cleveland. Let's stray a little bit. What are we going? A little west to Indianapolis.
Yes, I
did not think of much of the Indianapolis Colts. A lot of people questioned Anthony Richardson coming into the draft. They thought he was, all hype, no production. He looked pretty good today. I mean, Richard, he had a pretty good debut, and they gave the Jaguars some trouble, but ultimately the Jags come out on top. But there's a bigger story developing in Indy because if they have a quarterback, what do they need to complement a young quarterback, Rich?
Mitchell, a running game. Mitchell, the best cushion and security blanket for a young quarterback is a running game. And a great running back gives you a great running game. And you know where the Indianapolis Colts can find a great running back, Mitchell? Do you know where they could potentially? I mean, they're not found. I
got to think about this. Yeah, I got to think about this a little bit, Rich. I'm pretty sure they have one on their roster, right? That's healthy. What's his name again? I can't remember his name.
Jonathan Taylor, Mitchell.
That's it. Okay. Yep. They got him, right?
They decided, Jim Irsay decided, I'm going to be a selfish owner, and I'm going to punish one of my best players because he asked for a raise, and I'm going to put him on IR to show him, I run this show, not you. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make my ball club worse. We're going to lose games because I'm a selfish owner, and I'm not going to do what's best for my team. And that's unfortunate because you're costing, it's like one of those plays where a guy makes a selfish play in a ball game and you're like, he's costing his team. Like, why would you make such a selfish play? There's 52 other guys depending on you. Why would you do that? That is what Jim Irsay is doing to 53 guys, who he's doing to his new quarterback, who he expects so much of. You're handicapping him because you're taking away one of his best weapons, not because of something he did, not because the guy can't play or is unavailable. It's because you want to be selfish. And that's when it's unfortunate because you're like, you're the owner. You would expect you to want to win as much as anybody. But right now it doesn't seem that way because you put your best player on IR and the team was still out there competing their butts off. But I know that in the back of their minds, they're saying, man, if we just had JT, we might have won this game.
And they easily could have. And to your point, Rich, Jim Irsay is saying this about literally the best player in Indianapolis, regardless of sport, by the way, the best athlete in the entire city limits, the entire state of Indiana.
Mitchell,
Jonathan
the Colts
Taylor.
running backs combined for 16 carries for 15 yards on the game.
Richard, it is tough to recruit a free agent to play football anywhere north of Georgia, right? I mean, you want to come to Cincinnati, Cleveland, Indianapolis, Detroit. It is not easy to get any top-tier athlete, regardless of the amount of money. Hey, come sit up here, play with us. You're going to have to endure the cold weather during the winter. But when you got an owner like Jim Irsay who's trashing the best player on the team, you, Richard, you're a free agent. You're in your prime of your career. You can go anywhere.
I'm not going.
You're not going.
Nobody's going to Indianapolis when you know your owner is going to make decisions like this. Selfish decisions that literally hurt the team going forward. I mean, you're not ready to put the best product out on the field. And we don't want to overshadow Anthony Richardson's performance because he's the first rookie to ever to have a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown in week 1 of the season. Did really well today. Probably took more hits than he should have. But Jim Irsay is really letting this team down, and that's all I want to say about this. I don't want to keep giving him attention because I want to talk about this Philly game.
Let's talk about the Philly game. Before we leave this game, Calvin Ridley, shout out to Calvin Ridley. Had to endure a season-long suspension last year, injury battle, 8 receptions, 101 yards, and a tutty. Trevor Lawrence looked really, really good. The Jaguars, they fought. No one expected really a true battle in Indy, but the Jaguars, shout out to them, coming out with a big win. They look like a good team. Richard, let's take it to the game you want to talk about. The Philadelphia Eagles. Shout out, big play, Slay. Big play, say, shout out.
Shout out to Big Play Slay. Still doing it at a high level. And that defense looked really good, but there were some concerning moments down the stretch. And there were concerning moments on that offense because everybody has anointed Jalen Hurts one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League, if not the best quarterback in the NFC. And that's hardly been debated this offseason after the season he had. But when he went out there this week, Mitchell, 22 for 33 for 170 yards, 1 touchdown, 9 carries. He fumbled the ball. It just looked sloppy, Mitchell. It did not look like the same Eagles team that moved through confidently, who went out there and dictated the pace. And you could say they lost their offensive coordinator. They lost their defensive coordinator. So that's going to affect it going forward. You could say, hey, they're running the same scheme and they're running the same, but you don't have the same guy pulling the strings. It's going to be a different scheme, Mitchell. You lose Gannon, you lose Steichen, and what do you do? And they're adjusting, but that's not the kind of performance you're expecting from Jalen Hurts. And he got his big deal. A.J. Brown, 7 catches for 79 yards, not bad. Jalen Carter, with all the headline and all the media around him, had a sack in the game. Big play Slay, pick 6. They held him. But you look at Mac Jones' stats, 35 for 54. That's a lot of passes. He threw for 316, 3 touchdowns, 91.3 passer rating against this defense. Kendrick Bourne was having a really good game. Obviously, he had the tip pass off his hands that led to the Darius Slay interception. But it just did not look as dominant as it did last year. And people weren't expecting a lot from this New England Patriots team. And they had a shot to win this game at the end. They had a shot to drive the ball down the field and win this game. So you just, we have the Eagles next week. And I'm going to talk to Slay myself and Bradbury and see what's going on. See if the scheme's different. You can catch us on Amazon Prime, 7 p.m. Eastern. Be there or be square. The Minnesota Vikings versus the Philadelphia Eagles in Philly. It's going to be a fun game. We'll have all the fixings.
Before that game, and we'll talk about it, Rich, but the Eagles, they get out to a hot start. They go up 16-0 right out the gates. And like you said, the end result was a bit underwhelming. They very well could have lost that game. There's some question marks going into this next Thursday game. Who is this game more important for? The Eagles to right this suspect New England game, or the Minnesota Vikings, who need a win, Rich?
It's definitely the Philadelphia Eagles. They lose this game to the Minnesota Vikings, there is going to be a lot of questions going forward. I think if Jalen Hurts needs to play really well this game, needs to execute efficiently, needs to have more than 170 yards passing the football, especially when he has A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith as his receivers. He has the talent over there, and we haven't even talked about Goddard. We're not talking about the running game and the things that you can do dynamically there, the running backs and how dynamic they are. But you expected more from them. You expect kind of a Purdy output. This is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You want him to perform like Herbert and Tua just did. You want him to perform like Pat Mahomes did. You want him to throw the ball around the yard and make it look easy. And that's just not what we saw. And maybe that was just a rust, first game of the season, but they got a quick turnaround. So I'm looking forward to seeing them in that game. I'm expecting a D-line to heat up. They had 70 sacks last year, and they only had they only had 2 sacks in this game. So they got to get back on track and get after that quarterback.
Well, Richard, this concludes week 1. We got a big game tomorrow night. I know you love the Jets. Division foe, Bills. Who do you like in this game? I want a score prediction. Just give me your forecasting on what's going to go down tomorrow night.
Mitchell, it's going to be a really good game. It's going to be a defensive battle. The Buffalo Bills are a little beat up. Von Miller's not playing. There's question marks at safety. They don't have a lot of speed at safety. They're playing against Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers did not play particularly well against the Buffalo Bills last year, but the New York Jets defense did play well against Josh Allen. And Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed played well against Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. So I'm looking forward to those matchups. I got the Jets winning 28-24. Feel good about that.
I like it. Well, Richard, this concludes week 1. We're excited to be back, guys. The NFL is back, and the Richard Sherman podcast is alive and well, and we're excited to bring you guys our instant reactions every week. Richard, I will let you sign us off.
Appreciate you guys joining us. Hit that subscribe button. This is our own channel now. Check us out every week. We're going to have updates. We're going to let you know how the Jets did. We're going to let you know that the Cowboys are still divisional and done. Stick with us. Niners are going to be number 1 on my power rankings this week. Stay tuned.